Wow, we're coming down to the end of at least the first section of the ancient tales. Last time we talked about a dead son who lived, but now we're going to look at the last one, and that is from garden to coffin. 从花园, actually it's 伊甸园, to coffin, 到了棺材. And this is really the ending for this section. 真正的是结局. So you'll want to stay by because we have to finish this off. And then after the next lesson, we go farther and farther into the ancient tales. Stay by for more.
From garden to coffin. The ancient tales began in a garden, a beautiful place where all was good. It was a beautiful garden full of life. There, Adam and Eve lived happy lives with their Creator, enjoying all the good things He had made. How wonderful everything was at the beginning. Now we have followed the tales through some very sad stories. How quickly human beings lost their goodness and chose evil. Now we come to the end of the book of beginnings. What started so well now ends once again in death. Jacob has come to Egypt and has been reunited with his son Joseph, who he thought had been killed. The story ends on a high point there, but still life goes on for a while. For Jacob is old, and he knows the time is coming when he will die. He gathers all his children around him and speaks to them. He has a message for all of his sons, and not all the messages are good. Once Jacob has said what he needed to, he lay down and died. Joseph throws himself on his father, crying and kissing his face in emotion. Joseph has made a promise to his father that he will not be buried in Egypt, so he takes Jacob's body home to the family burial ground. What started in the beginning as life in a garden ends as a coffin being lowered into the ground. This is the sad aspect of our lives. We were not meant to die, but we do. This is our continuing tragedy. But it does not end there. For the Creator who made the world perfect in the beginning wants to remake it so it will be perfect again, with no death and no crying anymore. And that includes us.
Well, it's taken us a long time, but our ancient tales began in a garden. Okay, especially this ancient tale. It began in a garden. It was a perfect place. We even call the name of the place 伊甸园. And if you hear the term 伊甸园, the Garden of Eden, then you will know that it was utopia, a very beautiful, beautiful place. And in fact, it was a beautiful garden, you could say 花园, but it was even more than 花园. There were trees and rivers, and it was just a beautiful place. It was full of life. Okay? Everything was good. Okay? there were Adam and Eve, 有亚当有夏娃, and they lived happily. Well, I was going to say happily ever after. They didn't. That was the problem. They lived happy lives with their Creator. 他们过的生活是跟他们的创造主一起过. They were enjoying 享受 enjoying all the good things that He made. Of course, it was a perfect place. You know, in Chinese, they 生老病死. So something bad happened because it started very, very well. Going on, it says, how wonderful everything was in the beginning. 在起初, the beginning, everything was wonderful. 非常奇妙. Wonderful sometimes even has the meaning just very, very, very good. Now, we have followed the tale through some very sad stories. 很惭愧的故事. Very sad stories. And probably the saddest part of all, 最不好, 最难过, how quickly, 多么快, how quickly 人类 what? Lost their goodness. 失去 goodness, 良善, and chose evil, 选择恶行, 选择邪恶. Okay, so this is how it went. From a good start to bad, and then it gets worse. Going on? Yes. Now we come to the end of the book of beginnings. Actually, the name of the book in the Bible, it says Genesis. That's the beginnings book. 起初的这个故事. So it's the book about everything in the beginning. If you want to know how God created the world, that's the book where you read it. 上帝怎么样创造这个世界. You find it in the book of beginnings. Okay? Well, here's the point. What started so well now ends up in death. 一开始的时候是非常非常好，但是这卷书啊 it ends up again in death. Okay, 最结束 okay, 最结尾 maybe you could say it ends up 结尾还是有死亡. Now, Joseph has come to Egypt. I mean, not Joseph, Jacob has come to Egypt and has been reunited with his son Joseph, who he thought had been killed. For all he knew, his son had been killed by a wild animal. Remember the story? The brothers lied. And they said, oh, Joseph was killed by a wild animal. See the blood on the coat? Remember the story? Okay, but now Jacob, the father, and his son Joseph are back together. Now that's a wonderful, it'd be too bad, I mean it wouldn't be too bad, but it would be wonderful if that was the end. But the story continues on. The story ends on a high point there. So 已经到这个高潮 the high point, 这个故事就结束. But life still goes on. What does it mean, life still goes on? Life, 这个生活人生继续下去，也不会停顿。It doesn't stop. You keep living. If you went through today, you have to look forward to tomorrow. And it just keeps on going. For a while, it said, it kept on going. For Jacob is old, and he knows the time is coming when he will die. 他知道他死的日子接近。Going on. He gathers all of his children around him, and he speaks to them. He has a message. Now, this is interesting. Here's the father is dying, and he has a message for all of his sons. 每一个儿子，他有一个信息，那些信息都不一样。Okay, he has a message for all of his sons. And not all of the messages are good. And of course, in that culture, 在那个文化, they listen very carefully to what their father said. So, if he has a message for them on his deathbed, 他已经躺在他死的那个地方啊。And he has a message for each one of them. But before we go on to that, we have a little section called Light on Our Path. So stay by. We're going to look at that. Okay, now for some light on your path, we're going to look at Genesis 17:6.
创世纪的第17章第6节。
Actually, I could read several verses, but I'm just going to read this one verse. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you.
这里圣经说：“我必使你的后裔极其繁多。”国度从你而立，君王从你而出。
So God is blessing Abraham and all of his descendants. 他的后裔，
对，
上帝的赐福。Now, what kind of question does that bring to your mind?
我觉得很有意思，来到创世纪来到这里了哈，一个很了不起的人物亚伯拉罕出来了。
对。
然后，上帝为什么那么喜欢亚伯拉罕呢？难道当时真的没有人？因为亚伯拉罕有很多缺点，我也发现他不是一个完全的人，对吧？
Right.
但是上帝为什么那么喜爱他，要拣选他的一家，还有他的后裔？
Yeah, that's a very good question, and many people ask that question. And the only thing you can do is you have to look at all of the Bible, 整个圣经。才能够相信上帝所选的是对的。You have to look and say, God knows what he's doing. In the end, yes, it was a good choice. So all the rest of the people were not so good.
OK， 那还有呢？亚伯拉罕他的生命中也是很戏剧化的，是不是？艾老师？
Yes, very, very interesting. But it's interesting, even his descendants, 他的后裔是忠心于上帝。
对。
They had ups and downs, 有上有下。
对。
But they also followed God, and that's what he wants. Thanks for joining us on Light on Your Path. Okay, it says here, once Jacob said what he needed to, he lay down and died. 他要讲 他想要讲的啦。He laid down and died. So the messages were given. Each son had a special message. Joseph throws himself on his father. What does that mean? He just falls on his father. He throws himself on his father. He is crying. Of course, it's a very sad situation. He is crying and kissing his face, 亲吻他的脸, okay? In emotion, 这个 how do you say? 情感好浓啊. Well, there's, death, nobody likes death. Death is something that none of us likes. And in this section of our lessons, we're going to find that there is some hope beyond death. 这个死亡之后还是有希望. But we must wait a minute because we have a few more sentences to look at. Okay, Joseph made a promise to his father. 跟爸爸说了许下诺言, okay? 许下诺言. He made a promise to his father that he will not be buried in Egypt. 不会埋在埃及, okay? 埋葬. Okay? So he takes Jacob's body home. I imagine that was quite interesting because he is a very important person in Egypt. And he's traveling hundreds and hundreds of miles. So I imagine that they probably even had, an army with him. He's a very important person. 可能有军队在陪着他们. I don't know. Maybe he just went by himself. I'd have to look at the story again to see if somebody went with him. But they went to the family 家族的墓地, burial ground. 家族的墓地, burial ground. Going on. But what started in the beginning as life in the garden ends as a coffin being lowered into the ground. So we're talking about this first book, the first book of the 古经, of the Bible, 圣经. We're talking, so the beginning of Genesis, the name of this book was Genesis. The beginning, it started with life. Everything was full of life. 充满生命. In the garden. Okay, but it ends. Now, 结尾. It ends in a coffin being lowered in the ground. 有一个棺材, 这个要下到地里面. And as we wrote this story, this is the sad aspect of our lives. 我们的人生有这个非常非常悲惨的这个一方面了. This is the sad aspect of our lives. But we were not meant to die. We were not meant to die. 等于说呢，我们本不应该死，本不应该死。In the beginning, there was no need for death, but we made some bad choices, I would say. Adam and Eve made some very bad choices. And those choices continued on. Remember the stories? How even in their own family there was murder, 这个杀人, and sin, and all the bad things that happened made our world a very unhappy place. 是非常非常不快乐的一个地方啊。Okay, this is our continuing tragedy. The story continues on. The story continues. It continues to our day. Our day, the story continues because sad things happen. There's death, crying, pain, 痛苦. These are all part of our lives today. But it does not end there. 这个结局，这个结尾，不是在这个痛苦。For the Creator, 这个创造主 who made the world perfect, 这个起初 made the world perfect in the beginning, 在起初创造一切是非常非常好的。He wants to remake it. 他要重新创造这个世界。And our world will be perfect again. There will be no more death, no more crying, and that includes us. So, if we follow the path of the ancient tales, we can have the hope of life that never ends. 永远的生命. Well, we finished the lesson, but there are a few words we need to know. Stay by. Now, here are some words you need to know. First of all, a simple one, enjoying.
享受。
享受. To enjoy or enjoying. Okay. Next one, sad stories.
就是比较悲伤的故事。
悲伤的故事。哎，你要好好教我中文啊。
sad 悲伤，对。
悲伤的故事 sad stories. Okay, to become reunited with someone.
团圆一家团圆。
Okay, so they were spread apart, and then they come back together.
Gathering,
yes, reunited, 团圆. And then finally, life goes on.
这句话很真实，生活还是要继续的。
Yep, and we can say, hey, life goes on. 人生就是这样，life goes on. Well, thank you for joining us with words you need to know. Well, we've been sort of this last lesson, we've been looking and reviewing 文习 the story, the process, 这个过程 that we have covered from a very happy beginning to a not so happy death, not so happy ending. So, the 古今, this book has many more stories. So we continue on with a new section, 死亡令, 命令, against babies. You'll want to join us next time as we start another exciting chapter or section in this book. Until then, we'll see you.
That's all for today, and thanks for watching. If you like Ancient Tales for Today, please visit atft.chinesehope.tv. You may also contact us by writing to ancienttalesfortoday@gmail.com. Again, that's ancienttalesfortoday@gmail.com. Tell your friends about Ancient Tales for Today. See you next time.